Welcome to episode 170 of Gods and Heroes of Ancient Greece. My name is MyLinda Butterworth, and today I will tell you the tale of Aristaeus the Beekeeper. Aristaeus was a shepherd, the son of Cyrene, a water nymph, and the god Apollo. And to him there had come one day, as he listened to the wild bees humming amongst the wild thyme, the great thought that he might conquer these busy workers and make their toil his gain. He knew that hollow trees or a hole in a rock were used as the storage houses of their treasure. And so the wily shepherd lad provided for them the homes he knew that they would covet, and near them placed all the food that they most desired. Soon Aristaeus became noted as a tamer of bees, and even in Olympus they spoke of his honey as a thing that was food for the gods. All might have gone well with Aristaeus had there not come for him the fateful day when he saw the beautiful Eurydice, and to her lost his heart. She fled before the fiery protestations of his love, and trod upon the serpent whose bite brought her down to the shades. The gods were angry with Aristaeus, and as punishment they slew his bees. His hives stood empty and silent, and no more did the murmuring of innumerable bees drowse the ears of the herds who watched their flocks cropping the red clover and the asphodel of the meadows. Underneath the swift-flowing water of a deep river, the nymph, who was his mother of Aristaeus, sat on her throne. Fishes darted around her white feet, and besides her sat her attendants, spinning the fine, strong, green cords that twine themselves around the throats of those who perish when their arms can no longer fight against the force of the rushing current. A nymph sang as she worked an old, old song that told of the old, old tales of man's weaknesses and the power of the creatures of water. But above her song, those who listened heard a man's voice calling loudly and pitifully. The voice was that of Aristaeus, calling aloud for his mother. Then his mother gave command, and the waters of the river rolled asunder, and let Aristaeus pass down far below to where the fountains of the great rivers lie. A mighty roar of many waters dinned in his ears as the rivers started on the race that was bringing them all at last to their restless haven, the ocean. To Cyrene he came at length, and he told her his sorrowful tale. To men who live their little lives and work and die as I myself, though a son of a nymph and a god, must do, he said, I have brought two great gifts, O my mother. I have taught them that from the gray olives they can recap a priceless harvest, and from me they have learned that the little brown bees that hum in and out of the flowers may be made slaves that bring to them the sweetest riches of which nature may be robbed. This I already know, my son, said Cyrene, and smiled upon Aristaeus. Yet dost thou not know, said Aristaeus, the doom that has overtaken my army of busy workers. No longer does there come from my city of bees the boom of many wings and many busy little feet as they fly swift and strong hither and thither to bring back to the hives their honeyed treasure. The comb is empty. The bees are all dead, or if not dead, they have forsaken me forever. Then spoke Cyrene. Hast heard, my son, she said, of Proteus? It is he who herds the flocks of the boundless sea. On days when the south wind and the north wind wrestle together, and when the wind from the east smites the west wind in shame before him, thou mayest see him raise his snowy head and long white beard above the gray-green waves of the sea, and lash the white-maned, unbridled, fierce sea-horses into fury before him. Proteus only, none but Proteus, can tell thee by what art thou canst win thy bees back once more. Then Aristaeus with eagerness questioned his mother how he might find Proteus and gain from him the knowledge that he sought. And Cyrene answered, No matter how piteously thou dost entreat him, never, save by force, wilt thou gain his secret from Proteus. Only thou canst chain him by guile as he sleeps, and hold fast the chains, undaunted by the shapes into which he has the power to change himself. Wilt thou win his knowledge from him? Then Cyrene sprinkled her son with the nectar of the deathless gods, and in his heart there was born a noble courage, and through him a new life seemed to run. Lead me now to Proteus, O my mother, he said. And Cyrene left her throne, and led him to the cave where Proteus, herdsman of the seas, had his dwelling. Behind the seaweed-covered rocks, Aristaeus concealed himself, while the nymph used the fleecy clouds for her covering. And when Apollo drove his chariot across the high heavens at noon, and all the land and all the sea were hot as molten gold, Proteus, with his flocks, returned to the shade of his great cave by the sobbing sea. And on its sandy floor he stretched himself, and soon lay his limbs all lax and restless in the exquisite joy of dreamless sleep. From behind the rocks Aristaeus watched him. When at length he saw that Proteus slept too soundly to wake gently, he stepped forward, and on the sleep-drowsed limbs of Proteus fixed the fetters that made him his captive. Then, in joy and pride at having been the undoing of the shepherd of the seas, Aristaeus shouted aloud, and Proteus, awaking, swiftly turned himself into a wild boar with white tusks that lusted to thrust themselves into the thighs of Aristaeus. But Aristaeus, unflinching, kept his firm hold of the chain. Next did he become a tiger, tawny and velvet black, and fierce to devour. And still Aristaeus held the chain, and never let his eyes fall before the glare of the beast that sought to devour him. A scaly dragon came next, breathing out flames, and yet Aristaeus held him. Then came a lion, its yellow pelt scented with the lust of killing. And while Aristaeus yet strove against him, there came terrifying his listening ears the sound of fire that lapped up and thirstily devoured all things that would stand against it. And ere the crackle of the flames and their great sigh of fierce desire had ceased, there came in his ears the sound of many waters, the booming rush of an angry river in furious flood, the irresistible command of the almighty waves of the sea. Yet still Aristaeus held the chains. And at last Proteus took his own shape again, and with a sigh like the sigh of winds and waves on the desolate places where ships became wrecks and men punished, and there is never a human soul to save or to pity them, he spoke to Aristaeus. "Puny one," he said, "and puny are thy wishes, because thou didst by thy fooling wooing send the beautiful Eurydice swiftly down to the shades and break the heart of Orpheus, whose music is the music of immortals. The bees that thou hast treasured have left their hives empty and silent. So little are the bees, so great, O Aristaeus, the bliss or woe of Orpheus and Eurydice. Yet because by guile thou hast won the power to gain from me the knowledge that thou dost seek, hearken to me now, Aristaeus. 4 bulls must thou find, 4 cows of equal beauty. Then must thou build a leafy grove, 4 altars, and to Orpheus and Eurydice pay such funeral honors as may allay their resentment. And at the end of 9 days, when thou hast fulfilled thy pious task, return and see what the gods have sent thee." "This will I do most faithfully, O Proteus," said Aristaeus, and gravely loosed the chains and returned to where his mother awaited him, and thence traveled to his own sunny land of Greece. Most faithfully, as he had said, did Aristaeus perform his vows, and when on the 9th day he returned to the grove of sacrifice, a sound greeted him which made his heart stop and then go on beating and throbbing as a heart of a man who was striven valiantly in a great fight and to whom the battle is assured. For from the carcasses of one of the animals offered for sacrifice, and whose clean white bones now gleamed in the rays of the sun that forced its way through the thick shade of the grove of gray olives, there came the murmuring of innumerable bees. Out of the eater came forth meat, and out of the strong came forth sweetness. And Aristaeus, a Samson of the old Greek days, rejoiced exceedingly, knowing that his thoughtless sin was pardoned, and that forevermore to him belonged the pride of giving to all men the power of taming bees, the glory of mastering the little brown creatures that pillage from the fragrant, bright-hued flowers their most precious treasures. And Odysseus, the gods thought his work worthy and made him a god. And here is where my tale ends for today. But I'll be back with more tales, many more tales. Until then, my friends, enjoy the journey.